It was a father-son road trip down the coast to Baja and then over to mainland Mexico. This was a trip that set the course for the life of Jon Rose. This was a trip that served as a blueprint for building a lifestyle of travel and adventure. Passion met purpose when Jon began constructing his future in service to a cause, the water crisis. Instead of only catching waves as a surfer, he began making waves as a humanitarian.
If you do what you love, you'll love what you do. With regard to what you do, Jon, what is it about Waves for Water that you love the most?
Wow. That's a trick question. It's interesting because you said, if you do what you love, then you love what you do. And our original sort of ethos tagline of this do what you love and help along the way came very organically from its original intention, which was like, at that time, I loved to go explore the world and really immerse myself in different cultures, surf. These were my passions at that time. So the do what you love part was that. And then while I was there, it was plug purpose into that. So like help along the way. And it was very organic, but it was also pretty intentional, like it was right. Thoughtful in the way that statement reads. It wasn't, help and then do what you love. It was very much flipped around from the old school kind of martyrdom model of aid work. And there's this really cool energy and spark with that, with that feeling of just going out there and saying, screw it. Like I'm going to do the things that make me the most happy. And while I'm there, I'm going to try and leave these places better than I found them. It's a real simple concept, but we're a weird species. We really have a hard time loving ourselves, and we have a hard time giving ourselves credit. We have a hard time, it's like one of the hardest things to do. Like you can give other people compliments all day, but it's hard to give yourself one. And I don't know why that is. I feel like we should sort of own that shit. In what I mean by that in terms of Waves for Water is unapologetically go out there and serve yourself and serve others in the process, because you're going to serve others better if you're good, if you're in a good place. So it's really that analogy of being on an airplane and you putting your mask first, because if you don't, then you can't help anybody else. So that was the big light bulb moment for me early on. Now the transformation from that is that all of a sudden the purpose that you were plugging into the passions that you had become your passion.
Yes.
And it all gets mashed together and it all becomes this like really amazing synergy. And that's sort of where I've landed now.
That's amazing. And I love, you said it, that it's really just very simple, this whole methodology, but you're right. We have such a hard time loving ourselves, giving ourselves any credit. But what you've done, what you've created is just phenomenal. So here's the thing. Like father, like son, we've heard this. People are familiar with this. Your father, Jack Rose, founded Raincatcher to bring clean water to Africa. You then founding Waves for Water to bring clean water to the world. What has it been like battling this water crisis with your father?
Oh, it's awesome. And I mean, if you know us, then you know that we're sort of like a package deal. Like you get me, you get him, you get him, you get me. Well, for anyone else that comes in our life, like that is it. That's the package. That's how it comes. There's no other option. That's the way it is. So it's and it's been that way since the beginning. And we've collaborated in life. not just as father and son, which is like the ultimate collaboration,
Right.
but you know, in our work and in our ideology and in our in the way we have fun, you know, tackling the world and adventuring. And you know, I mean, I remember when I was 9 years old, he took me out of school at like 2 months left on my 4th grade school year, and was like, we're going to Mexico. And we packed up his old pickup truck. And back then, I mean, I'm sure it would be a lot harder to do this now, but like back then, you know, he just did it. And of course, consent from my mom and all that stuff. It wasn't like kidnapping or anything. but I mean, you know, basically just like no real plan, just saying like, this needs to happen. And we spent like 5 months. So it was like the last 2 months of the school year and then 3 months of summer, and just zero plan, totally spontaneous, camping on the beach. And it's where I ended up surfing for my first time. And you know, I went all the way down Baja and then took a ferry over to mainland Mexico, and then like camped on his buddy's land that was like north of Puerto Vallarta for a few months, and just like, you know, bushwhacking with machetes and surfing and just like pure adventure, and really adapting daily to like whatever energy we were feeling. And then drove up at the end of that summer up through Arizona, you know, mainland Mexico to Arizona, and then over to Southern California. And then he just enrolled me in 5th grade. And I mean, I would have loved to have been in that room with the administrators of the school. Like, where's his transcripts, like from 4th grade or what happened, you know? But it didn't matter. And I just was in 5th grade, which you can't really do now. I know that. But the moral of the story is, it's just that's sort of that was sort of his parenting style. And it's not coincidental that my life manifested the way that it did. I mean, if that was my first example,
yeah,
like, why am I addicted to adventure? Because I started at 9, you know, and learned adaptability and resourcefulness, and just like really being immersed in a place, present moment type stuff. So it's natural that I would create a life that was built around that, and using professional surfing as the first vehicle for that, and then using Waves for Water as the second vehicle to sort of exercise that passion.
Mm-hmm.
So I think doing this work with my dad is just sort of like an extension of, you know, my childhood. And then of course now like the roles reverse too, you know, like like I've taken the helm and he's supporting me, you know, in a more supporting role, whereas it was flipped around when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's normal with kids and their parents and stuff, but it's a really cool story. It's just any way you slice it.
An interesting story indeed. What an incredible experience. That, yeah, it's amazing. You know, let's talk about this. You know, from providing clean water to communities in Haiti following the earthquake, to delivering bucket filters by horseback in Mongolia, I've been told, your work has taken you a long way from home. Of the many locations that you've traveled to with this work, what place has felt the most like home to you?
Ooh, that's a really interesting question. I think there's certain regions that we're drawn to, and I think there maybe is some like ancestral wiring there, or I don't know, like for example, my dad is very, very drawn to Africa. Like that's where he feels the most, I guess, at home. For me, it was more like Central South America, where I just feel, and I'm saying that as a region, if I just go to the place and I don't know the answer to why, it's just is, you know, that's just where I felt, and he's like the opposite, like he doesn't prefer those places, you know what I mean? So yeah, there's these funny things that you can't explain. Then if you want to get a little bit more granular with it all, like Haiti, I think there's these natural places that you're drawn to, like I just said, and you can't explain why. Then there's the ones that weave their way into the fabric of who you are from more of an energetic standpoint. And whatever experiences you've had there have profoundly impacted you to the point where that is home. Like the feeling that you have there is home, and Haiti's that for me. I think I've had, the biggest growth of my life in that country. And so for that reason, I don't know if it would be without those experiences, like those other places I mentioned, like if I just showed up, if I would have that feeling. But now in retrospect, like there's probably no more powerful place on the planet for me than Haiti.
Wow. That is really, really interesting. And like how you're saying, not just from your experience, but the environment itself, and how the two of them play into that feeling of home that we find. So where most people will race away from danger, you run toward it. So the question now, of all the situations you've been in, Jon, what has been the most dangerous situation that you've run into with your work?
There's been a few that really stand out. Working in Afghanistan in 2011-12, during the peak of the war over there, we were partnered with the U.S. Army, doing humanitarian assistance programs with these civil affairs teams, helping women's empowerment actually within these communities, like training the school teachers and medical professionals, the women of those communities, with our program. And it was a really cool initiative. It was also like an active war zone. There were two days before I got there, there was a mortar attack that would happen on base that sent two people home in critical. And the hole where the mortar landed was like right outside the barrack door that I was staying in. It was like 2 days prior. 1 month after we were there, the main doctor that we were working with got sniped on base and killed in action. So those are like real clear and present dangers. Those are just, it's direct danger. You know what you're getting into. There's like lots of protocols. You're assessing that risk and basically analyzing it and saying, I'm willing to take this or I'm not. I didn't force anybody from my team to do that. It was something I felt was really powerful. And like all these people are literally, all these civilians are literally caught in the crossfire of a situation like this, a war, and there's no NGOs allowed, not just allowed, but no NGOs that would work, in the middle of a war zone. It's just not typical. And it's also not typical for an NGO to partner with the military. It's actually kind of considered taboo in a lot of ways, at least within our sector, but I don't believe that. And it just felt compelling to do it and to take that risk. And at that time, I can't even say if I would take that risk now. Like, I don't know. It's just at that time, it just felt like it. And, 50,000 Afghans gained access to clean water because of it. It was the first and only civilian military partnership of its kind, and still the only one that's logged in the war. And that was extreme danger. I mean, there's, so much risk and so much palpable risk right there. So that's what you call direct danger. And I don't know, like, it was a couple days of difference between what could have been something very, very scary for me, but wasn't in that situation. And I am here to talk about it. And the project was a success. Now, the other side of the coin is where you have indirect danger. So direct is like people shooting at you, you know, that type of, like, it's very clear what's happening, and then you can kind of adjust and adapt accordingly. Indirect is the scarier one for me, because you can't, like, it's danger you can't necessarily see, right? Like, it's not right in front of you. And so I had the opportunity to go to North Korea in 2014, I believe, 15. And I'm not gonna say that we were in danger. Like, I can't say that, because that didn't present itself. But you know, I had to leave my cell phone in China. They took my passport when I landed, and then you're on their program the whole time. And that feeling of uneasiness, like if at any moment they just decided to say, oh, you're like, let's say some geopolitical thing happened while we were there, and then we were just the collateral piece. I'm not making any assumptions saying that they are looking to do this to Americans at all. I'm just saying, let's just talk about history and talk about, like, the way this stuff happens. And you're putting yourself into a situation where you're extremely vulnerable. There is no other foreigners there, no one, you know, like, there's just us. And if at any point that narrative decides to change for whatever reason on either side, really, but you're the one caught in the middle of it, then you have huge risk, like be stuck in North Korea, you know, held like that. There's plenty of stories like this of ex school teacher or ex person or this person that we know about that this has happened to. So that type of thing in the back of your head, where, like, yeah, I've been in way scarier situations on the streets of Haiti than it was in North Korea. But psychologically, the level of tension and sort of pressure, at least that I felt personally, I did have a colleague with me, and it was such an amazing experience to actually do that. But it was just like a little unsettling, you know, just because of the nature of everything, the nature of the relationship, the nature, you know, you're just really kind of putting yourself out there. And then I've had, you know, other very sketchy situations in Haiti and in Africa as well, and just situations where you could have really sketchy situation in Los Angeles.
Right. This is true.
So it's really just about having your wits about you, head on a swivel, situational and environmental awareness. You know, all systems, all pistons firing type awareness. And that's sort of, I think, knock on wood, you know, I've been through a lot of situations. We worked in the Syrian refugee camps in the Baja Valley. And there's a lot of risk, but if you're hyper aware and doing your due diligence, and you can kind of mitigate that risk, and we have.
Right. Well, it's interesting how you identified the two different kinds of danger: the danger that's right there in front of you, and then the other that you can't. And I hear you why the second would be a little scarier. Just it's
weird.
Something
how that is scarier than somebody actually pointing a gun at you, I don't know. Like, that's still, because, you know, on paper, like, somebody pointing a gun at you is very scary. But that's like something that's face value, like, you see it. You get it all, it's right there, so then you can react. But other stuff, it's hidden.
Right. Another level of non-control that's probably not comfortable.
Exactly.
You know, so let's talk about what you've got going on right at this moment, because with approximately 2 million people currently displaced inside the borders of Ukraine, your emergency clean water initiative for Ukraine is a priority. So love to hear just a snapshot about what's your game plan and what is your goal with being there?
Yeah, so I mean, and first and foremost, the goal there is to focus on those displaced persons within borders. We're not focusing on the refugee camps outside the borders. There's a lot of big agencies supporting that, and that's really great. That's where, like, a lot of the volume is, but there's all these pockets of need that are just, like, basically falling through the cracks throughout the country, as you can imagine. and we just felt like with our Clean Water Corps team, which is our veteran strike force, if you will, they're just badasses, and frankly, just very well equipped to. This is what they do. This is what they've done. Their entire military career is work in they call it VUCA situations, and they're trained for this. So we've really just focused, led by Rob McQueen, who I know you got to talk to, and he's really spearheading the initiative and just getting some of his key players in, and we're building this. We have been building this like local network of implementers, because in some cases our crew has been going cross border. But a lot of it is just coordinating and building up these networks of local, just groups that are going back and forth and, under the radar and servicing different needs and really tapping into that. And it's a lot more logistically minded, tactically minded than some of the other programs we're doing around the world that are really straightforward. This is complex for obvious reasons. But yeah, the goal is just to find those pockets of need. I mean, and like these networks of implementers that we're facilitating, they are helping on a lot of levels. They're getting a lot of different types of aid, and we're just one layer of that. And we're really arming them with new tools to be able to help their people. So yeah, it's a really rewarding initiative. It's really challenging.
I can imagine.
But we have, some good support, and like I said, our Clean Water Corps veteran team is just they're A+.
Awesome. That is awesome. When it comes to bringing more clean water to more communities, again, your father passed you the torch. You broke the mold and made a model with Waves for Water, where you continue to pass the torch to others. You continue to empower them to serve communities with clean water, just as you are doing. So sustainable and scalable Waves for Water is such a beautiful union of passion and purpose. So here's the question. Do you feel that you have heard and answered your calling in your life? Or is this where you have this pioneer within you that still has this need to keep exploring beyond what you've built?
Oh, keep exploring, always. Yeah.
I thought that's what you might say.
Yeah, it's so funny. Everyone's like, "You found your calling." I'm like, "I found one of them for sure." And that's not to sell Waves for Water or any of the things I've done in the past short at all. It's just it's just sort of the way my brain works, and I really believe in life as chapters of a book. And I had the professional surfing chapter, and I had Waves for Water chapter, which I'm still currently in, but there will be more chapters for sure.
Well, excited to follow you in this novel of a life that you're creating with these incredible chapters and the people that you are helping along the way. Again, such a beautiful life of passion and purpose. And thank you for sharing it with us and for helping all of us just become a bit more, I'm going to say, aware now.
Yeah, right on.